What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and we are back with another Trails-related video. And this is not what I expected at all. Obviously, I'm a day late to the news because I wanted to wait for all the information to come out before I made a video on it. But we are getting a Trails of Cold Steel anime. This is the second, actual... I don't know if you would even call it actual. I haven't watched it yet, but there is a Trails in the Sky, OVA. But I don't know if you'd really consider that like a full anime. That's more like kind of like an OVA project. But yeah, so we're getting a Trails of Cold Steel anime. This was their big reveal at the end of the 40th anniversary live stream yesterday. And then over time, we've gotten more information as to what it's actually going to entail. Originally, I woke up, I saw the news, got overly excited that they were going to cover, but Trails of Cold Steel 1 to 4, maybe get I was being a little optimistic at first, thinking we might get like a season per game. But obviously you have to understand, Falcom is a much smaller company than a lot of these other companies, like Bandai produces Tales, Square Enix produces Final Fantasy. So in anime on the scale of regardless of what you think of it, Zestiria the X was a good produced project in terms of visuals. And then, of course, Final Fantasy has had some animations over the years as well, but Falcom doesn't really have the budget to kind of do something on those scales. So it does make sense that they decided to go with something different, doing an original story. So we are getting an original story based on Trails of Cold Steel. I don't know if that means it's still going to follow Reen and Class 7. Maybe because we're going to go into detail, but they make it sound like it's going to be taking place possibly after Cold Steel 4 or after Hajimari, which it comes out in 2022, so Hajimari could very well come out before this anime airs. So if it is post Hajimari and before Kuro, then this would be fine, for fans in the West, because it is being Funimation is co-producing it, so obviously it's going to come out at the same time. So West fans and fans in Japan are going to be watching this at the exact same time, which is insane because this will be the first Trails thing that the world is going to be able to enjoy at the same time, and hopefully this means that they're going to try and do stuff like that in the future. I don't think Kuro no Kiseki will come out at the same time. That would be very wishful thinking, considering they're still working on Hajimari, but hopefully this is kind of like the beginning of them kind of closing that gap, a little faster. If we could see Kuro no Kiseki by like the end of 2022, I think I'd be pretty happy with that. Even though that is still like a year later, because people are thinking that Kuro is going to come out in September in Japan this year. And we still don't have a release date for Hajimari for the West. But anyways, okay, so let's just go over everything here. JRPG fans rejoice. The popular franchise Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel is officially getting a television animated series in 2022 as part of a global collaboration between Funimation, Userjoy, CO, and NADA. I don't know a ton about these three other companies. The only thing I know is that Userjoy is the company that apparently works on the other, I say other, like it's confirmed, but works on the gacha game, Akatsuki, I think it's Akatsuki no Kiseki. I actually played it a little bit, but I couldn't really get into it. It felt like a very kind of like dated gacha. Even though it's actually relatively new. I think it only came out a couple years ago. Anyways. So I only know that about them, but CO and Nada, I don't know anything about. Obviously, right here, it just explains that it was announced during the live stream. So it will feature a brand new story set in the western part of Zemuria, where the Trails of Cold Steel games are set. So it is going to be... it's funny that they don't specifically just say Erebonia. So it's might not be in specifically Erebonia, which means it might not follow Class 7. But let's take a look at what it says here. We hope that everyone, not only the fans that are familiar with the game, but also those who are not, can enjoy the new story that has never been told before with unique characters from the Kiseki series. Okay, so it says unique characters, so that implies that the main cast of this anime is not going to be Reen in Class 7. That doesn't mean that Reen in Class 7 won't show up, because, why would you call it Cold Steel and not have any of the returning characters? So, obviously, there is going to be some fan service. I don't mean fan service in the actual Cold Steel way of how they handle it, but like fan service in terms of older characters. Um, so I do think we will see some of these older characters return at some point during the anime, but I don't think they will be the main focus. Um, so let's see. So said user joy, Annie Liu. Also, we are developing a new game based on the anime storyline, so please look forward to that as well. So this is interesting because if this was a normal game, uh, they probably would have announced it, which obviously it probably was announced during this, but you know, this is Funimation talking about it. Um, it would have been something pretty big to talk about at the on the actual 40th anniversary live stream. And since Userjoy is known for doing PC and mobile stuff, I have a very high feeling that this is their way of kind of wanting to, what's the word for it? Kind of branch out and kind of make the series more popular. Because obviously in the West, it's not as big as it is in Japan. I feel like even in Japan, it's not as big as, you know, some of the other JRPG franchises, but it's still pretty big. So I have a very high feeling that this is going to be a gacha game that's just going to kind of go alongside the anime. So if the anime, let's say the anime starts in January of 2022, which it probably won't because these animes usually go on like a seasonal thing, so they usually start at a very specific time. So I would say probably like March or April of next year would be the earliest we would see it. I would say maybe the game would come out, you know, maybe they'd release it like a month or two before, and they would have like the story of the mobile game be like a prologue, you know, the first like couple chapters be a prologue to where the anime is going to start, so that way you can kind of like play the game and watch the anime kind of join together. Now I already see people, you know, being upset about this, you know, people who really aren't into gacha games, but the big thing with gacha games is this is how, one, they pull people into the franchise. You know, all these gacha games that do extremely well do pull fans into the series. And two, it makes money. Falcon, you know, they obviously want to make more money. If they want to fund these console games that you love so much, you know, money is a necessity. So gacha games are a big way to kind of make that happen. Now, I do have worries about this being in the West. It's kind of the same worries, you know, we had about, you know, Tales of Krystoria when it was first coming out. You know, is it going to survive? Because it's more of a niche franchise here in the West. And it, I'll say this, Trails is much more niche in the West than Tales is. Tales does have much more of a presence over here. So I will be worried if this is a gacha game for the Western side of things, because, you know, how many, you know, people are really going to know what this is. So I would say the smart thing for Falcom to do in this case, or I guess Userjoy in this case, would be to make sure it's all on one server. So you're not solely relying on Western profits for a gacha game that, you know, maybe a couple thousand, you know, 10, 20,000, maybe at most 50,000 people in the West will probably be playing. But I guess we'll have to see. You know, if it is a gacha game, we'll see how they handle it. Then they go ahead to explain the Trails game series, kicked off in 2004 with Trails in the Sky. It has spawned, numerous sequels, which obviously, if you don't know anything about Trails, you kind of do need to know. Not for this anime, obviously, because they said they wanted to be good for newcomers as well. Any Easter eggs from actual Cold Steel will probably be very minor and not be super integral to the plot. But obviously, if you plan to play like Trails of Cold Steel 3 or 4, you do need to know what happened during the Libero and Crossbell arcs. And then they go ahead to explain what Trails of Cold Steel is. It's a massive story of war set in the Erebonia Empire. Follow Rean Schwarzer, a student in military academy of the Empire, and how his class gets involved in the conflict between noble and working class. I feel like it's only the noble and working class for like the first two games, and then after that, it's just insanity. With such a huge world to explore, telling an original story set in this universe should be an exciting prospect for longtime fans of the franchise, as well as newcomers who want to dip their toes into Trails of Cold Steel. So, it seems like this anime is going to be used to pull in newcomers as well. You know, if newcomers like what kind of happens in this, they might be interested in playing the games. But I see a lot of Western fans, you know, the reason they don't, there's two reasons that people don't want to get into Trails of Cold Steel. One is the turn-based combat, which now I'm seeing people react to Kuro no Kiseki's combat and they want to play, and then they get told, you know, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense, which I'll save that for a different video, I guess. You know, if you can start with Kuro, which my immediate answer is I would say no. I guess you could, but you're going to be very confused. But yeah, so basically I do see people complaining, you know, the gameplay looks fun for Kuro no Kiseki, and then they look back at the old games and it's turn-based combat. So turn-based combat is what turns people off, and then I guess the dated graphics, I'm using air quotes when I say that, because obviously Trails is made by a company with not as much money as some other companies, so it's not going to be as visually impressive as, like, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake or something like that, but whatever. That's not the main focus of Trails. These games have been praised for an emphasis on a character-driven narrative and world building, very accurate, which sounds tailor-made for an anime adaptation. If you want a taste of how big the world of Zemuria is, just take a look at the official website for the games, okay? Which, obviously, you can't play the Crossbell games, you know, normally in English, unless you play with, like, the Geofront patches and stuff like that. The latest installment, Trails of Cold Steel series, launched on PlayStation 4 in North America and Europe last year, basically talking about Trails of Cold Steel 4, and it's making its way to PC and Nintendo Switch on April 9th, which is literally a month from yesterday. And that's pretty much everything they have to say. So, I'm very excited. I do feel like whatever story they're trying to tell here will be integral to the grand narrative that we eventually get to see. Because there would be no reason to do an original story unless you were actually trying to do something, and Trails is notorious for making sure that everything that happens in their games or in their series is important to the ongoing story. So I would not be surprised if whatever cast of characters we're introduced to in this anime eventually show up later down the line, maybe in you know, the Calvard arc, or maybe we see something, you know, in a future arc of some kind. But I don't think it's just going to be like a one-off kind of like, you know, oh, there are these like 2 or 3 characters you get introduced to in this anime, and then that's it. You never see them again. And then as for this game, once again, I'm like 90% convinced myself that it's going to be a gacha game. Because once again, like I said, gacha games sell and they bring awareness to a franchise. So I think this would probably be what they're going to go with. And plus, Yuja Joy works on PC and mobile stuff. So even if it's not a gacha game, it would be something on PC. Which means it would be like a Steam game, which would be kind of weird if it didn't come to everything else. So most likely, it is going to be it's going to be a gacha game, probably. What's interesting is the gameplay for Akatsuki no Kiseki, the other gacha game, is just normal Trails, like turn-based Trails. So what are they're obviously going to do something new to make it unique from that, because there's no 2 gacha games from the same franchise that play exactly the same. So I wonder if it's just going to be like regular turn-based combat where you have like a team of 4 characters or something facing off against enemies. It's really hard to kind of speculate what we're actually going to see from like a new gacha game, but I think it'd be pretty neat to get a game, you know, if it played, you know, similar to something like Christoria. I think I'd be fine with that, because you know, you'd be collecting the main part of the gacha is collecting your favorite characters. So if the main focus is Cold Steel, you are obviously going to get, you know, all these characters you see here, you know, be able to collect them. There's also the case of, would it be a character gacha or would it be a weapon gacha? You know, so you just get the characters for free and then you have to gear them up. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, you know, if it's even a gacha game at all. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you're excited for a Trails of Cold Steel anime. Even though it's not covering the story I would have liked it to cover, I think it can still be exciting, and I'm actually even more excited now, I would say, because it's going to be an original story that's going to further expand kind of the lore of this universe. But like I said, let me know what you guys think down below. Don't forget to subscribe more if you're new to the channel. I will keep everyone updated with news when it comes to all this trail stuff, you know, whether it's the games or, you know, when the anime gets its like first trailer, or when we find out what this game is actually going to be. I will definitely make a video on it. But that's going to be it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.